The Verovkina Cave Tragedy, Sergey Kosv's Obsession. The Verovkina Cave is a natural wonder that is both scary and strange. The Caucasus Mountains hide it in the dark. It goes down more than 1.3 miles, more than 2,000 meters, below the surface, making it the deepest cave on Earth. This underground maze is more than simply a geological wonder. It is a challenge that has drawn explorers from all over the world. Sergey Kosv, a 37-year-old thrill seeker and devoted father from Sochi, Russia, was one of the people who wanted to explore the depths of the Verovkina Cave. For about a year, he was quite interested in the cave. Sergey had only been underground twice before, so he wasn't very good at caving, but he was quite interested in how deep and convoluted the cave was. He didn't think of it as just a place to go. He thought of it as a pilgrimage, a test of nature that needed respect, skill, and a strong will. The cave is highly dangerous since it has very thin ledges that attach to the walls, deadly rope drops, tight water-filled sumps, and many more perils that have killed even the most experienced cavers. The premier Russian Perovo squad had been to Verovkina many times. These cavers, who are among of the best in the world, were very careful as they walked into the cave. They traveled in groups and used relay systems to transport hundreds of pounds of gear, food, and survival gear down into the abyss. They usually traveled for days, so they had to prepare ahead and be ready for the weather to be bad. Sergey, on the other hand, wasn't scared off by the cave's terrible reputation or the dangers it offered. He had heard stories of calamities, including the scary flash flood in 2018 that almost killed National Geographic photographer Robbie Schoen while he was investigating the cave. The team heard a rumble far away that quickly turned into a deafening boom as water raced into the tunnel like a freight train. When a vertical shaft turned into a waterfall and drenched them with cold water, they had to evacuate their tent right away and run for higher ground. They almost died in the flood, and they had to rush away quickly with only a little bit of safety. Everyone who knows the cave will always remember that calamity. This close call only made Sergey more curious. He didn't give up. Instead, he looked at images and maps from the 2018 trip, read every report, and watched films made by other explorers. He didn't think the Verovkina was dangerous. Instead, he thought of it as the last frontier, a riddle that needed to be solved. On November 1st, 2020, Sergey began what he assumed would be a personal voyage. He informed his family in Sochi that he was going on a journey to find himself or his purpose, but he didn't tell them where he was really headed. He didn't mention he was heading into the depths of Verovkina by himself with just a rope, some gear, and his own resolve. It was hard to get there. Sergey went several miles up a steep, damp mountainside to get to the cave entrance. He had to dodge slick rocks and heavy trees along the way. There was a lot of excitement in the air, and the breeze from the mountain made it feel a little cool. Sergey paused near the cave's big mouth to get ready. There was no official permission, no method to talk to anyone, and no aid group. He was all alone in the void. Sergey clipped into his rope and proceeded to slide down, breathing steadily the whole time. The first steep drop put him in a dark, suffocating void that was only broken by the ghostly light of his headlight bouncing off the sharp rock. Every move he made was meticulously planned, and every moment was full of danger as he steadily slid further into the dirt. On the first night, Sergey set up camp more than 1,000 feet below the surface. The Perovo crew used an old base camp. He ate a simple dinner, kept track of where he was, and mentally prepared for the obstacles ahead. The cave got colder and smaller as the days went by, which made him weaker and less able to do anything. He rappelled down tiny shafts and crawled through tight openings. The granite walls looked like they were getting closer with every step. On November 3rd, he made it to another underground camp. This one was colder and farther away from people than the last. Food and journals left by other explorers let him feel connected for a brief period, but they also made him feel more alone. He wrote his last journal post that day, then he was gone. On November 6th, when the Perovo team went back to the cave, they saw signs that something was wrong. People misplaced their gear, and there were weird footsteps all over the cave floor. It was clear that Sergey had been there and had gone farther than anyone had anticipated he would. As they fell down, the terrible reality came out. They found Sergey dead at the bottom of the cave, next to a freezing water sump that signaled the end of the main descent. He was resting on his back in a shallow pool, and the light from his headlight wasn't very bright. His camera and other gear were nearby, as was a small box with his well-kept notes. His last writing suggested that he had gone too far, maybe even trying to swim at the cave's lowest point, which was quite cold. The police think that Sergey probably died from being too cold and tired. The water was almost freezing, and it soon drained his strength without a wetsuit. He was too exhausted, thirsty, and maybe even had a brain injury to deal with the cold abyss. Sergey Kosv perished alone in the dark, and his obsession with the Verovkina Cave led to his death. The Cueva Cave tragedy, a descent into darkness. The Cueva Chevé, or Cueva Cave, is a deep cave in northwest Oaxaca, Mexico, which is hundreds of miles away. It has always interested explorers. It is one of the deepest caves on Earth, with a height of approximately 9,000 feet above sea level. People know it for how beautiful and dangerous it is. Every year, professional cavers come back because they want to discover new things and feel the thrill of being in the dark. In late February 1991, a crew of 14 very skilled cavers came with a definite goal: to get to and dive a sump at the farthest point of Cueva that has been explored. This job had to be done with the most care. They put up ropes for 115 vertical drops, and each one was scarier than the last. They had to be very careful and work together precisely. As they moved deeper into the dark maze, the team carefully cycled people and supplies, traveling down 2,690 feet to Camp 2. The caves were damp and twisty, and they had to use their skills to get through tight spots every time they turned. On March 1st, Peter Boston and Peter Haberland went back into the cave with two additional persons who were sick or hurt. Chris Jorger lost his rappel rack, which was a critical piece of gear, as they slid down. Haberland was nice enough to give him a new one, and they kept going. They had to make an unpleasant rebelé move to get down a two-pitch drop as they got closer to Camp 2. Haberland went down first, carefully going around the low anchor points. A rock dropped when he got to the bottom and called for Jorger. Then it went really quiet, which was unnerving. Haberland peered down and saw Jorger lying still in a small pool. His body was twisted in a way that didn't look normal. Haberland was afraid and shocked, but he forced himself to be calm. He hurried over to Jorger's side and found that there was no sign of life. He went back to camp to let everyone else know. Brown and Boston swiftly got emergency equipment and started CPR right away. They tried for 20 minutes, but it didn't work in the end. Chris Jorger was declared dead. The tragedy of Al-Qara mountain, the fall of Ayan al-Asmah. Ayan al-Asmah, 36, set out on what was supposed to be a quiet day of hiking and snapping pictures in the hot, rugged mountains of Alasa Governorate. Ayan likes being outside and regularly shares stunning images of his adventures on social media. He wasn't a professional climber, but he was sure he could do it. It was a lovely but dangerous place to be on Mount Al-Qara because of its high limestone cliffs and narrow ridges. On a clear, calm Saturday afternoon, Ayan started out on his own to climb the top of Zima, which is roughly 15 kilometers east of Hof. He hopped from boulder to boulder and stayed away from big cracks that ran through the rock as he crossed the treacherous ground. When the sun was going set, Ian contacted a family member for a brief time. His voice was hoarse and strained. He said he was stuck, but he didn't tell where. The call terminated without warning, and all other attempts to reach him failed. His family called the police. As the sun began to fall, civil defense and volunteers started to hunt for the person who was missing. They looked at the rugged cliffs with flashlights. A volunteer observed a glitter in a little crack hours later. It was a phone that was broken. They found Ian's body stuck up in a space that was only big enough for a person to fit in. He couldn't move his arms, and the stone walls were hurting his chest. The hefty weight made it hard for him to breathe, and gravity made his body swell in a way that hurt. The heat of the desert made him feel much worse. Rescue workers used sophisticated cutting tools to break up the boulder and free him for almost 3 days. Sadly, it was clear that Ian had died not long after his last contact because he couldn't manage the terrible conditions of his imprisonment. The Abbey Caves flooded in May 2023. The Abbey Caves, which are close outside Wangari in Northland, New Zealand, let explorers see ancient underground worlds with stunning limestone structures. School groups and adventurers like to go to the caves, but they can also be highly deadly without notice. Even though it looked like it might rain heavily, 7 people went into the caves on May 28, 2023. The weather report warned there would be storms, but they were still excited about the chance to find new things and have fun. The floodwaters inside the cave system continued to rise swiftly as the rain got heavier. It only took a few minutes for dry areas to become raging rivers. One mother and her 2 kids got stranded in the fast-moving water and forced to climb higher onto ledges as the water level rose quickly. A ranger who was nearby quickly sounded the alarm. Emergency personnel were on the scene within an hour and started a complex rescue using ropes and boats. While they waited to be pulled out, rescuers provided food and warm blankets to the folks who were stuck. By the end of the night, everyone who had been stuck was safely taken out. They were afraid and freezing, but they all made it through without dying. The incident was a harsh reminder of how perilous it may be to go inside caverns, especially when the weather is terrible.